Welcome back to the Untold, where we get amazing people with amazing stories. Me and Ahmed today are gonna have an amazing guest. We always have
Yes.
amazing guests.
We always have amazing guests, but we have a special story this time. We're going to spread awareness about autism, about being on the spectrum, what it's like when you have a child on the spectrum, and all these struggles that parents would go through because our guest is not only a parent of a
She's also a
she's
doctor.
also a doctor, Dr. Huda AlMahdi. So I think we should just,
Without further,
further ado, present
let's.
our guest right after this. We're back on the Untold, being joined by our very special guest, Dr. Huda AlMahdi. Welcome on the show.
Welcome
Thank
to
you.
the show.
Thank you, Nas. Thank you for having me.
Of course, we want to start from the beginning. You have a tremendous amount of experience, a lot of stories to tell, but let's start with why you even want to become a doctor, what made you proceed the medical field from the beginning.
And the question that I had before we start, what is a family physician? Because a lot of people get confused about that
Okay.
job specifically.
Okay. First of all, thank you for having me.
Of course.
My passion to become a doctor started when I was on the, I could say, 11th grade,
Okay.
when we were taken for a trip to the medical school.
Nice.
And then, that's one thing. Another thing, I found myself very much into medical issues, anything related to medical issues. Plus, my father always wanted to have a child who's a doctor. So
Every parent in existence.
Doctor or engineer.
yeah. That's
Sorry,
so
mom.
I thought,
Sorry, dad.
So I thought, why not?
Yeah.
And it just happened. I joined the medical school
In Kuwait?
in Bahrain,
Okay.
Arabian Gulf University. Well,
Nice.
Kuwait also have a share of, like, it's also like a Kuwait University as well.
Okay.
So it has a share there. And I had a scholarship to study in AGU, Arabian Gulf University.
Nice.
Perfect.
So,
By the way, the minister is a graduate of the AGU.
Oh.
Oh.
Yes,
no.
Dr. Ahmad ALMazeedi is a graduate. He's a colleague.
Hello.
So,
yeah.
let's talk about, first of all, besides being a doctor, you also have to be a doctor at home, not just at work, because you have an autistic kid. So let's talk about that and how that affects your, your work, and how does your work as well affect, or your job affects having an autistic kid at home?
And maybe before that, let's explain autism and the spectrum
Yeah,
to people.
I wanna
maybe,
I wanna get
Yeah.
more deep into it.
Okay, first of all, you need to know what autism is. Autism is it's a developmental disorder. And usually we relate to as a spectrum. Spectrum means it starts from mild to severe.
Yes.
And it is a disability where the disability usually is marked by the social interaction. So children with autism had trouble interacting with others, like social interaction.
Right. Social cues and all that.
Exactly, in terms of language. And it's difficult for them to learn from the society because usually children learn from observing. They lack, autistics lack this ability, and this is, of course, it's a bit variant from mild to severe, as I mentioned. They also manifest with some symptoms, like they're having some repetitive movements. They have some sensory issues like tactile issues, auditory sensitivity, and so forth. So this is what autism is briefly.
So as far as I know, autism comes from a chromosomal, disorder.
No, it's not. It's not even proof that because
That's what I heard.
because autistics, they usually look normal. They look normal.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
their milestones. When I talk about milestones, which is physically, their physical development is usually normal. The problem is with the mental development.
It's the mental. So it has nothing to do with chromosomes, because as far as I know, it's like the 27th or 37th
No.
chromosomes.
It's still autism. The scientists are trying to study this thing because they've noticed that some families, like twins, there are twins with autism, and on the other hand, there are twins. One of them is normal, the other one has autism. They've noticed that sometimes, in our society, relative marriage is very common. They notice that in relative marriage, they might get, again, autism can happen also in non-relative,
Right.
like strangers get married and then they
So
would
there's a
have
lot of studies going on
lot
when
of
it comes
studies
to
so far.
The origin,
until
like
now.
the reasons are still not clear. I
Still
guess
not
still
clear.
not clear.
So now let's talk about your experience with, having an autistic kid. God bless him. They are a blessing after all. I've seen some autistic kids and they're very childish. They are adorable to be around.
Okay, let's be so realistic here.
Okay.
I have my second son, Faris. So I have Nawaf. He's my first son. As a family physician, let me just tell you my role as a family physician in detecting abnormal development in children. As I mentioned at the beginning, my job as a family physician is screening. What does screening means? It means
Diagnosing.
that when the child, he looks normal, but when I as a doctor, I examine him, I would find out that his milestones related to that certain age is abnormal. Or delayed.
So you'll find the abnormalities. And
Definitely. Of course, at the age of, for example, at the age of 4 months, the child should be having a social smile. Like when you say "oh" for the child, he would smile. Autistics cannot do this because the area in their brain, which is still not developed, at the age of 6 months to 8 months, he's supposed to reject strangers. Autistics don't do that. They just go with strangers.
they cannot comprehend
They cannot
the
comprehend
situation.
that this is exactly the eye contact. Usually,
Yeah,
children,
there's no eye
everyone, even you as normal people, you communicate with the eyes,
Right.
which is called the eye contact. This is very much lack in autistics. They lack eye contact, so they can't learn the normal children would learn. They cannot read cues. They do not know whether you're angry or happy or whatever. They are so much impulsive, they would put themselves in danger because they don't know what danger is. This is a very much, it's a red flag. It's a delayed development. So as family physicians, you just asked me back to your first question, I recognized Faris to be abnormal when he was infant. I knew
Few
that
months?
when he was 4 months old, he never had the social smile. But then I just
You knew
passed
something was up,
that. I
but you were
said,
like, okay.
I noticed, but then I passed it because I was doing my specialty and I was
Right.
very busy. And I had Nawaf. Nawaf is only 16 months older than Faris,
Oh,
so I
wow.
had them
Yeah,
just
back
like
to back almost.
back to back exactly, and then I was very busy. But then it became so obvious that Faris wasn't normal at the age of 1 year, where he couldn't not even a jargon like the children's language.
Right.
He didn't have any eye contact. He would go with everyone. He never recognizes me as his mom or his father. He never said goodbye. Like this is very normal for a 1-year-old when you tell them goodbye, or he would say mama.
There
or
are
baba.
the little signs that
Yeah.
you
Of course, so
Pick
a
up on.
lot of
most
signs.
parents would neglect.
Yeah. Actually, in my case, I did not neglect. I was ignoring because I was in denial. So I was letting my parents know, like my mother and then my aunts, and I was telling them that Faris does not respond or he's still not talking. Say, he's a boy. All boys in our
They
family
take long.
take too long to speak, and this is very normal. Just didn't like you said.
And he didn't want to face the fact that there's something.
There's truth
going
to
on.
that what they're saying, because sometimes it's like that. Sometimes.
But
It
it's
is.
not. But if there's the abnormalities
Right,
are
right.
way too much, they're repetitive.
Absolutely.
Right,
Then there
right.
are something.
Yes.
There is something wrong.
So at what point you confirmed that he has autism, and now is the time that I
Okay,
need
so
to-
my denial persisted then till I finished my Irish board.
Okay, nice.
And then it was so obvious at the age of 2 years that he was all the repetitive
Something's
movement,
off.
the hand flapping, the jumping, and there was no language whatsoever. There is no eye contact. So I took him to the same nursery where Nawaf was. So I thought I wanted other eyes to see other than me.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
wanted a second opinion.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Meh.
Then yes, that's exactly what I thought has happened. The teacher called me. She said, "I guess Faris has an issue. Why don't you take him to a specialist?" I said, "Oh no, no,
No.
Oh, no.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Wait,
I don't think you can deal with children, you know." So I took him out with Nawaf as well. Nawaf was following all
So
the
now
time.
the school
but
is
yeah.
bad.
So the nursery didn't know how to deal with
Okay.
them. Although deep inside, I know that now Faris has something.
Faris,
This
has,
is part of the
yeah.
denial. I took time till I regretted that time, but that's okay.
Why do you think you were in denial?
Because I had plans, plus the stigma of having a disabled child in a family. I've never experienced this in my family, by the way.
You've probably seen it in other families as, a doctor, but you haven't seen it in your own, and you weren't ready to face the
That's
fact.
the thing, exactly what you just mentioned.
So it took you 2 years.
2 years, yes.
To,
and then I took him to another nursery.
and
The other nursery,
yeah.
it took him a week to tell me. The teacher told me. She
and
said.
the first nursery took them?
1 day.
Wow.
And that's also another story. It seemed that I then knew that the teacher who told me, she had a background in special needs. So she knew.
Okay.
So then after a week, they told me they couldn't handle his tantrums. And he was very much impulsive. They used to have rabbits, in the garden. He used to just jump and hand flap all the time, like for an hour. And whoever pulled him away, he would have he gets a throw tantrum.
Because of frustration. They get frustrated quick.
That's
quite
exactly what happens.
Easily they get frustrated.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the other nursery called me and said, why did you pull Nawaf, the eldest? So I told them, she told me, please take Faris to a specialist. You have to take him. So I took him to one of the very known institutes here in Kuwait. They told me he's too young. We are unable to determine whether he has a problem or not because he was very much attached to his bottle. He only drinks milk with the bottle.
Milk bottle for the kids, like the kids.
So he's attached to a specific bottle.
He's attached to it.
Okay.
So it took me. They told me, okay.
But kids get attached to.
Yeah.
I was attached to a blanket. For God's sake.
This is a sign of insecurity. But the thing, the attachment in autistics is actually a symptom. So this is not normal at all. So it took me 3 days with the tantrum stuff just to take it away because I need to get a diagnosis. So I took him back. They didn't give me a diagnosis. They told me, okay, wait.
He's too young to be diagnosed?
He's too young to be diagnosed, but
that's funny.
you need to work on the diaper. He has to be off the diapers.
He's at age 2 right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I took him to a third nursery where he stayed there for some time, like about 3 months or so. And then again, they told me, we just can't control him. You have to do something about it.
These are 3 nurseries that are normal nurseries.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's where you just had to go through acceptance.
Yeah, it took me. Faris stayed at home for some time, and then he was growing up, and the symptoms has become so obvious, and then I had to face it, that he has a problem, that needs to be something has to be done for him, and then I took him to another doctor who threw the diagnosis of autism because nobody mentioned autism at the beginning. They told
they
me
were just saying some sort of learning disability maybe or
no, they said he has he's a bit delayed and then you need to work on him. We don't know what exactly
no one said anything
they
about
don't want to
autism.
label him at the time.
Okay.
And it was too early to label.
Yeah, and did you have concerns there was autism? In your
Actually,
denial
autism
stage?
at that time wasn't really known. Okay, I know what autism was.
What year was that?
It was he was born in 1997.
Yeah.
But in 1999, when everything just started in 1999, at the 2000s, I came to know that he had autism. And then I clearly remember that day when my husband was with me, and then the doctor saw him. First time he saw his hand flapping, and then when I told him the symptoms, he said, well, you're a doctor, you should know that this is autism, and this is very much wrong because I'm a family physician. It's not my specialty to diagnose autism, so I didn't know what autism is.
Well, you can see through the, the actions or whatever he's.
So that
you can notice something is
later
wrong.
on. When my husband is not a doctor. He's not in a medical field whatsoever, but he told me, what is autism? So I said, I'm not sure.
Back then, nobody knew what autism was.
It's because
I know what autism is as by the term, but I didn't know exactly what it was. And then at the time, we have the internet was there, but we didn't have any source of information. So I went home and still, I was still in denial. I didn't really think that it was autism.
Took you a long time.
Yeah, and I opened the books, my medical books, and I read about it and all the symptoms.
At what point you decided to quit and focus on Faris?
Before the age of 3.
And what made you make that decision? Because that's a very, very tough decision to make.
Especially if
Yes.
you live in a denial for a long time, then you have
It
to.
took me about 6 months when he was at home, and then he was growing up, and then I was reading about autism, and I thought that there's something has to be done. It's like part of my personality. When I face a problem, it takes me time to understand what it is, to comprehend it. And then if this problem really makes me sad, I have to live sadness. Then I get enough.
It's the normal stages of
Some of them, because if I live it, I will become so fed up of it. So then I said, now I have to do something about it. So I remember I wake up in the early morning one day and I told my husband I need to quit because I couldn't, I couldn't take the load of work.
Okay.
And then to go home and face 2 children. One of them needs me,
Mostly.
like the eldest one.
Yeah.
And then the second one also needs a special care.
Special care.
So that's it.
Your job.
We'll ask that question right after this break because it's time for a break. I'm sorry. We'll be right back.
So we're back again with our guest, and before we go on a break, I had a question. First of all, your story is amazing. I love how you're so like in accepting all of this, and you're giving, I guess, to any parent who has an autistic kid, guides how to accept it and how to stop being in denial, which is amazing. So I guess my question was, how did that affect your job? I mean, you are a doctor, you work with kids all the time. So did that improve, you as a doctor in any way?
I always say, if you face other people's troubles and problems and sorrows, and then it's just for a few minutes, then they go home, and then you go home facing your normal life. But when you have the problem at home, you have to deal with it for 24/7.
Quite different.
A child who needs a 24/7 care. This is totally different. So the thing is that I couldn't take it. I couldn't handle the pressure of work and then the pressure of working with Faris.
It must be a difficult decision to make still.
It's very difficult. Then
it's your career.
The career can wait, but my son grows up. Of course, but my son, I can't stop him from growing.
Right.
And if we don't really interfere early, then he's going to turn up like a very, very much disabled child, which cannot handle his own life. So I decided to resign. And that decision was very tough because, we have the pressure of the family. Oh, you studied for 12 years and now you're going to quit that easy.
It's a career, to quit your career for your child.
And it's not any career.
It's amazing. And you're a doctor.
Yes.
And I think it's amazing what you did. But what was your next step afterwards?
Actually, after I resigned, I put a plan. You have to put a plan, okay? And then, because as I told you, autism was not very much known at the time. So I invented so many plans, so many things. Faris was like a guinea pig. I have to experiment so many things on him. And then I attended lots of conferences, and I met so many people who had a good background about it. I have experimented with some, have you heard about the gluten, casein-free diet?
Gluten-free, I heard of, but I don't know what the second
is.
That's
a hectic and very, very difficult time we went through. When I tried this for 3 months, we all lost weight dramatically because we need to eat certain food.
Do that diet?
Because there was some hypothesis. Hypothesis says that children with autism might respond. They are allergic to or they have difficulties in digesting casein and gluten, and this might be the reason why they are having such symptoms.
Did it help?
It didn't.
I love how the family just came together. Let's all stop eating this. Let's all do this.
The diet didn't
it's amazing.
It just didn't work because I used to work with him, and then he was developing better slowly but surely. And then when we released back to his normal diet, he was also developing well. The thing is that my life with Faris was up and down. It's like, what we say, like
A
the
roller
easy thing. It's
coaster.
sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail. And with each period of his life, I had to go through lots of miseries because choosing a school, choosing an institute, and then dealing with the unknown. And I don't know when he is going to become better, when he can master a language, so many things. But I was very lucky having a very, very good support backup, like my husband. He was so supportive. I have a very, very supportive family who they understood later on why I stopped going to Zwara, to the weekly
family gathering.
Because Faris, I couldn't control Faris, and nobody knows what autism was.
She needed time, and she needed to focus on her.
If I could tell you how many times I lost him in the malls. I lost him like for 3 or 4 hours. He just ran away.
As far as I know about autistic kids, they get really scared when they can't find a familiar face.
He's not scared
at all.
The thing that he's not scared at all.
He would go with any stranger, which is the issue.
He might go with any stranger.
Okay, so my information is wrong.
Yeah, I mean, here comes the problem. So, and I just can't sit still in our weekly gathering, not paying attention with him. So better to stay at home. And because I loved traveling before I got married, and then after I got married, I used to travel a lot with my husband. Having Faris with me in the house, you have to control him 24/7. Because he was nonverbal, he was not speaking, and you don't know why he's crying. And with all the tantrums he was throwing, life was very difficult.
So now we've talked about how hard it was. So were there any good moments that you appreciate?
The good moments when he started to say mama and baba with the first encounter.
What age was that?
That was about at 3 when I created that room for him. And then I put our pictures and I was pinpointing, this is mama, this is baba. Faris, gul mama, gul baba. Then it means that he's verbal. Knowing that your child is verbal is good news because communication will give you a lot. And then when Faris started to speak, actually until now he's 26, but his speech it does not really correspond to his age. But it's fine. He speaks fluent English because that's the first language. It's an easy language for him.
So as far as I know, a lot of kids can talk, but they refuse to. Was that the case in?
No. He's because this center of speech, because in order for a normal human being to live and interact with the society, he should be able to speak. And the autistics, they don't have this ability to speak. And there are a lot of non-verbal autistics.
A lot of mutes,
Exactly. They communicate with them with photos, pictures, or... So I was very lucky that Faris was able to speak.
That's actually... and just listening to your sacrifice and everything you've done for your son, it's just beautiful to see someone that would go out of their way.
I guess it's actually a responsibility. Any caring mom
should do that.
Even if your children, all of them are normal, I mean, every child has his own personality, then you will have to deal with. There are basics when you are raising a child. As I was speaking with my husband the other day, I was telling him that even Nawaf paid, my eldest son, he paid also the price of being the first son because I neglected him somehow when I had to focus with Faris. And because they are too close to each other, he used to be so jealous of him. Until now, Nawaf is 27, I still apologize to him.
I think he understands. So
at this point, he should.
Yes.
So who was your support system in all this? Who supported you?
My husband. He was number one supporter.
Good.
Maybe he was unable to do exactly the things I do, but he was backing me up with information. He also tolerated my times of depression, tolerated my anger, and he was there all the time. He was telling me, tell me what to do. I will do it for you. And then if I'm going to give credit for someone, I'm going to give credit to him because he was very, very well in research. He also helped me meeting people with autistic children so that I would be able to communicate and exchange information. So he was there all the time. Even in the interviews I had, he was with me also in the interviews. And I was doing most of the talking because I was there because I'm the one who usually is the number one caregiver for Faris, but he was exactly my backup. Even when I had times where I like crash, I'm unable to do anything, he was there. He says, fine, keep Faris with me and just do whatever you want. I'll be there for you.
So, first of all, obviously, we want to, I'm really glad that you had a supportive partner, a husband. He was very patient, obviously. So, I really appreciate the story that you told us. Ahmed, do you have any questions?
Yeah, so we talked about stigma about autism, especially in our culture, especially back in the day. How did you overcome the stigma in the society after acknowledging and accepting the diagnosis of your son, and now you're working on him, but there's a whole society that's fighting you?
Yes. Hadeel, she mentioned something at the beginning. She mentioned how did you accept Faris's case of condition. First of all, I have to tell you, this is not easy. Talking about the stigma. You are a person living in a society.
Right.
Everyone says that this child is foolish or he's been spoiled, you know, that's the thing.
He was being bullied.
He's been bullied, of course, because others don't really understand, except especially his mates. When I
like, what's wrong with him?
Because he wasn't interactive. He had this weird symptoms, and he was a weak point. So he's like a weak person, so it's very much easy for anyone to bully at him. The thing is that here in our society, they don't want even to mention the word disability. I don't want you to say, my child is disabled. You will have to say he's different. Well, I totally agree. But talking about the definition of disability, it means that you are unable to do an act or a certain task that other normal people can do. And this is by itself is not a shame. It's a challenge. Afterwards, I have to be frank with you. It took me so long to accept Faris's condition. The thing is that when you take him some places and then he's having these
tantrums.
It's not the tantrums. It's also the behavior.
Right.
And when he just screams and everybody looks at him.
He makes a scene.
Yes,
and he doesn't know what he's doing.
It's not only that. I come a very disciplined family. My family has disciplined me very well. So, you know, when an elderly comes, you have to stand up. I do not...
Basically manners.
So it was hard to teach
him the manners.
Bedside manners.
So I thought the people, they would say, I did not discipline my child. I'm not raising him well. This took me time. But then...
hurts too.
It
hurts.
Of course. So then later on, when Faris tended to grow up, and then I started to work on him, and then I came across other autistics with even severer, like we say, symptoms. I realized how blessed I was. So then I started working on myself. That's why I'm telling all mothers, you need to work on yourself. You have to be honest with yourself and accept that this is from Allah. This has given you a challenge, and you have to be ready for such challenge. When I started to speak about Faris and tell others that Faris is having autism, I realized how much people are in need to know. And then when the social media just started, the Facebook, I started my Facebook page. Good. And then with Instagram, I started
social
my
awareness.
Instagram. Yeah. Yes. And then people became so passionate with Faris. They became, I would say, more supportive. And then some were so much interested to know more about autism. So this is how our role as mothers to spread the awareness.
Absolutely.
So the only way you can spread the awareness is when you are really accepting that your child has got a disability that needs to be worked on.
That's why I think we're blessed with social media, because there are some downsides to social media, but if you use it correctly, you can spread awareness about issues like this.
That's exactly true.
So thank you for the amazing story. Thank you for being with us, talking about your kid, talking about the blessings you could have. That was incredible. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for joining us tonight, and I again admire the sacrifice that you've made for your son. and the awareness you're spreading right here on this platform. Thank you for your time, Doctor.
And thank you for having me.
We'll be back with the wrap up. What an inspirational story we had today, and there's the sacrifice. I'm hung up on that
I love the
sacrifice that she
journey.
did
I
for
love
her
what she
son.
talked about.
Yeah.
As a human, I'm not gonna say a parent, I'm not a parent, but as a human, if I had an autistic kid, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to do whatever she did. Not just because she's a doctor, but the sacrifices it requires.
I honestly think that Dr. Huda should make a book about her experience, and it will be a very successful book because a lot of people need to know what kind of struggles she went through, what things she did for her son. I
Especially,
think a book would be great by
yeah, especially
honestly.
in a time where autism was not like nobody knew what
Yes,
autism
back in
was.
the 90s, the stigma. Today, we with better knowledge, with more awareness, being more accepting of our differences, and just love each other, you know?
Love and peace, y'all.
Love and peace. That's all for the Untold for tonight's episode. Tune in next time, right here on KTV2, for a brand new episode.
Good night.